Okay, in this video I'm going to give you an overview of all of the DIY stuff. The website has been redesigned for DIY builders. As I'm stopping manufacturing, I wanted to give back to the DIY community that got me started in designing and creating pedals. You're going to find a bunch of resources here. Many of them cost money because it costs money to run the website, and I want it to be able to run it and have it be there for a long time. Let me sort of walk you through this here. So first of all, if you want to go to the DIY stuff, it's where it says shop/DIY right here in the middle. If I click there, first thing you're going to notice there's a bunch of things that say coming soon. You click on them, they'll say out of stock. That's just because it's going to take some time for me to organize all the files. I'll show you later in the video the sort of the types of files that are in there, and you'll see why it's going to take some time. But I wanted placeholders in there so you knew what was coming, and then they'll just be added, okay, over time. A couple of things. There are two things that are free. One that's free forever, one that's free for 2021, and that is the graphic template files. Those are free forever. Feel free to use those to create graphics for yourself for commercially to use or whatever. That's great. And then the AlphaDoc files are free for 2021, so you can check them out. Check out all the files. We're actually going to look at those files in this video, but basically to give you sort of a taste of what's in all the other ones, so you know what, if you're going to pay for it, you know what you're getting. Okay. And then lastly, I do want to note that in this section there are two other things other than files that you may find. One is on occasion, and on rare occasion, you might find assembled pedals. Here's an assembled Klein bottle. It's sold out, but if I get time to build more, then I'll list more if I essentially finish building the ones I already have on pre-order, kind of thing. So, and there might be some other things in the future, a year or two from now, and I tweak with something, I want to experiment and build a small run, then you might find it here. But that's going to be rare. The other thing is, at least to start, I'm going to be listing parts, and these are the proprietary parts, the custom-made parts that I have extra stock of, and you know, you're not going to be able to find them anywhere else, so I want to make sure they're available. However, those parts won't be listed in quantities of one. I just don't have the time to fill orders of like 1, 2 potentiometers, and or one custom controller or whatever. So they're going to be in quantities of like 5 and 10. For building multiple pedals, because just unfortunately I don't have the time to ship out and process. It's just me, it's not like some whole system here. As of filming right now, there's only one thing on there, and I'll be adding more throughout the rest of July and early August. Okay, and so now I want the rest of the video to focus in on those DIY files, because that's the primary focus of the website here. So I'm going to go click on the AlphaDog because it's the only one that's available right now, and it is free, so you can go get it for free. And all you got to do is click Add to Cart, and it's a whole brand new website with a much better checkout system. I'm not going to show you the checkout because this is free. You can just check it out. The thing I do recommend when you're checking out here is that you also actually add to your cart those free graphic template files so that you can download those as well. Okay, and just add those to your cart. You only need to add this once. This is graphic templates for all the different compact pedals, and so on. All right, now there you go. We can check out. Let me show you where that goes. Okay, so when you do that, you're going to get. Let me slide over here. You're going to get a zip file called alphadog.zip. And in it, it's going to be a bunch of folders. And in that folder, you're going to find a README file. And that README file is where to start. Okay. I should note before I even start in here, the other download for the graphic templates, that's going to be pretty straightforward. It's going to be 3 Photoshop files for the different series and their graphic templates. And that's all there is in that one. Okay. So here in the README, you're going to have the pedal name. This is just title screen. And then here's the sort of main page. Most of the information on this page is universal. It's just telling you what kind of files you can expect to see. Here's some links to some YouTube videos that are going to be helpful. There's one YouTube video that will be specific to that pedal, and that's the audio circuit walkthrough video. The audio circuit walkthrough will be specific to the pedal, so this would be a specific link to the AlphaDog one. And then down here behind my back is, in case you forget, there's the link to the graphic template files in case you need those. All right, now, what are the other pages in this? The other pages are essentially to show you the different versions that I had put into production at some point. So these are the versions of the files that you'll see will contain these different various versions. So the latest one, the latest version is first. It's the I'm calling it the SBS series. You can tell it's got top-mounted jacks and it's got 2 rows of 3 controls. And say SBS series is the most recent design across the board. And then we have the original VFE sort of configuration. It's called the standard series. And so you can see they got jacks on the side. They got 3 knobs, and then there's 3 smaller controls, either mini knobs or switches or whatever. Okay. In this case, I had made 2 versions of the Alpha Dog. So there's the original version, and they got the second version. The Alpha Dog Junior is essentially a standard series configuration in terms of the controls and everything, except for it's just missing the 3 smaller controls, so it's a simpler pedal. So all the graphic template, drilling template, you just use a standard series, and you just ignore those 3 extra holes, and that's it. The construction is basically identical, other than that, in terms of the fundamentals. Okay, and then the live series is something that I did to for 2 reasons. One was when I was designing a smaller pedal lineup when I went back to teaching, something that was much faster to build. It's only these pedals use just 1 circuit board. All the other pedals use like a combo of 2 different circuit boards. Plus, this is easier for my students to build. So this was all about making it easier for me to build and for my students to build. So that's the live series. Top mounted jacks on there as well. And then depending on the pedal, there might be some, hey, there's some other things that I did, and you just fun information for me to add at the end. But these aren't, there's no DIY files specifically for these, because there were just so few of them made, or they were made so long ago before I actually kept any records of anything. So there you go. So that's what the README file is going to contain. And then what we're going to look at next is we're going to look at each individual folder inside of here and what it contains. Okay, let's go ahead and look into that assembly folder. So in here, there's basically 2 sets of files, parts lists and what are like board assembly lists. So let me show you the board assembly list. I'll open up the latest one, the Alpha Dog SBS. Here we go. Okay, now I'm going to zoom in here a little bit. So in this file, it has a board layout with where all the parts are. I like to print this out. It's nice and big. So it's much bigger than the circuit board itself to look at. And then down at the bottom or on the side somewhere, I list the parts in the order in which I'm going to add them to the circuit board. So the first part I would add is the 47 ohm, 2 of those, 100 ohm, 1 of those, 220, 1 of those, and so on. I do want to note that just for the sake of later on this video, this size resistor that you see right here is a larger resistor. One that would be closer to the size of those little diodes would be considered a small resistor. That'll make a little more sense later in this video. Okay, so that's what these are. On some of them, they also list the potentiometers that go on the other side, but not on all of them. They don't list that. I should note that the one thing that's not listed on any of these is that all of these audio circuit boards have you put in a 5mm LED on the other side, not on this side you're seeing right now, but on the back side as the indicator light for the on-off switching. Okay, so those types of files in there, and then the other files that are in there, and the one I want to focus most of my time on here is this parts list. So here's the master parts list. Let me show you what that is all about. Okay, so this is quite a lot, and as you might imagine, it's quite a lot of parts. So why did I give you a full list? For a few reasons, but the main one is when you download the Alpha Dog files for free in 2021, or later you find this and you pay a few dollars for one, I want you to be able to see not just the parts that it would take to build that pedal, but what parts it would take to build any of the pedals, so that you kind of have some information before deciding to purchase some other files to try to build other pedals. Okay, so it's all in one place. It's also simpler for me to make and update than to try to keep a bunch of separate lists. Okay, now there's tons of information. Let me show you how this is organized. Okay, so first up top here is basically like a 2 or 3 letter code for each pedal, and it's pretty intuitive. Like the alpha dog is AD, alpha dog. The rocket EQ is, I don't know if I'm pointing in the right spot, somewhere over here. Rocket EQ, REQ, right? The fuzz duo, FD. Okay, so you can usually figure that out. The only one that might be confusing is the merman. That's not MM. The mini mu is MM. So the merman is the mer. Okay, so I think that's the only one where there's potential confusion of the different pedal designs. All right, now, how does this document, how's it laid out? What, other than the fact that it's saying this part and how many quantities, you can see that, right? Like, here's the alpha dog, it has 1 A10K pot. Okay, so that part is hopefully intuitive to figure out. Like, this is the part, this is how many it is for that one pedal. The part that I've tried to add in that isn't obvious to start is links to kind of get you started to go find out how to buy that. So the main links are here, like they're categorical links. So if I go and click on this, 16 millimeter pots, it sends me out to a small bore website where I can purchase 16 millimeter pots that are compatible with the board. Okay, and then I should note, and I just remind myself I'm going to need to update this file for this reason. Those pots will come. There's later videos around it with. They won't come always with dust caps, and so either you need to add a dust cap to isolate it from the metal on the circuit board, or you'll need to use electrical tape. So I'll link the dust caps in there and just reminded myself to do that. Okay. So that's one way. Another way is in pink, and let me zoom in on this. Pink are things that you will be able to purchase from me at least until I run out of stock. These are parts that I had custom made, and so because I haven't custom made, you can't find them anywhere else, and so I'm the only source that has them. So you can click those links in pink. It'll send you to the VFE website, part of the site that just has parts. If you click it like right now, right as I'm launching this video in July 2021, you probably won't find all of these parts listed, but eventually I'll get them all up by the end of this August. Okay, and so that's the second type. So we've got these category links, and then we've got like these specific like pink links are for things that were custom made by me, and then these orange links are ones that I felt like was those parts are too specific and too hard to find. Rather than giving you a generic link, I gave you an exact link. So if you click on this one, it sends you to that exact part. Okay. All right. So that's kind of the idea behind all of these. Now there are some like quirks and things like that that are still to be ironed out here. Okay. Let me go through here and find some of those quirks. Okay. Here we go. All right. So we've got two different types of capacitors. And so what I've done here, if you click these links, is that they go to a Mouser web page where I have filtered out all of these various specs that align with the things that I use in the pedals. So you click there, and then now all you're looking for is the part value. Like, is it 100 PF? And the other thing you might need to pay attention to with the capacitors, you'll need to pay attention to the part size. Is it the right physical dimensions? I made sure the lead spacing fits, but maybe that one's too wide, and so you got to pay attention to how wide it is and some of the dimensional specs. Is it going to fit? Unfortunately, I can't filter every last detail out for you. But it gets you quite a bit of the way. I do want to note one quirk here with the multi-layer ceramic capacitors. The dielectric filter that I have on here is an audio grade. It's COG or C0G or whatever. It's one that's really good for audio. However, there is a multi-layer ceramic capacitor on the list that when I use it, I don't use an audio grade capacitor. It's right here. It's the last one on the list. It's the 0.1 U, and you'll see it's just tons of them. Every single pedal has at least a few. And that's because it's a decoupling capacitor. It doesn't need to be this specific audio dielectric that's good for audio, so it can be anyone. So I do want to note that that one can be any dielectric, little ceramic. That's fine. Okay, and then the other thing I do want to note with Mouser, give you another example here that I mentioned earlier in the video. Where can I find? Oh, it's up here. Okay, so up here it says small resistors, larger resistors. So that's, you click on one and it filters out to the size resistors that fit in those smaller resistor places. So basically the circuit boards, the more complex ones, in order to fit everything, I had to use smaller resistors. And it's usually pretty obvious, as I showed you, that diode size versus that larger resistor. That diode size is really close to the small resistor size, so it's pretty obvious which one you're dealing with. And so these two are also spec'd for size and power rating and tolerance and composition and temperature coefficient and all these sort of things to try to take away some of the complexities so that you can click on that link, and you should just be able to just pick the value. Okay. With these ones, because there are two fixed sizes, I was also able to do dimensions, so you don't need to worry about dimensions, just about the component value and the resistance value. The capacitors, unfortunately, they come in so many different shapes and sizes that that's something you'll have to pay attention to when ordering. Okay. There is one more thing, I think or two more things. Go down here to the transistors. Okay, this is not up on the website yet, but will eventually be there. This 2N5952 JFET transistor, it's pink because one, it's really hard to source, and I happened to at some point find a good source, and I just bought a lot of them. And because in the two pedals they're used in, there's one in the Bumblebee, and there's a matched set of 4 in the tractor beam, and in both set there's a specific voltage setting that I measure. That's a VGS rating that I measure. In the tractor beam it's about getting matched sets. In the Bumblebee it's a specific voltage range that I'm looking for. And so rather than having you you would have to probably buy like 25 just to be sure that when you tested them all, you would find something that met the spec. I'm going to sell these on the website, but give me a little time because I got to spec it all out and figure out how much I need to charge to make it worth it. This again also won't be something that you can just buy as a one-off. Unfortunately, don't have the time to do just individual components, but it will be available that way. Okay. I think that is it. Oh, I do want to, of course it's not it, whatever. This is complicated. This is where it gets complicated. Electrolytic capacitors, I haven't written a voltage rating on most of them. Most of them I would just encourage 25 volts or higher. Would give you plenty of space. The 22U lowest ESR, the ones I typically get are 50 volts. And I encourage you whenever possible to get at least 35, because with the charge pump, if you were to run a 15 volt power supply, that's 15 volts up, 15 volts down, that's 30 volts total, as sort of like the maximum that the system could handle. So if you're at 35 volts, you're pretty safe. You got 50 volts, great. Pay attention to the diameter dimensions. I've again filtered some things out so you're not looking at much, but there's all sorts of different lead spacings and diameters available, and so but there is one here that says 10 volts. That's because it's a really skinny one. It's on a 5 volt power rail, so 10 volts is fine. Okay, and then there's these ones that say low ESR. That's low equivalent series resistance, because they're in they are used often in filtering or decoupling applications, and so low ESR is more ideal there. And then the last thing is there's this little BP. BP stands for bipolar. So that means a bipolarized aluminum electrolytic. So when you go there, you'll need to find a category that says nonpolar or bipolar. Click that, and then you look for that part. Okay. Okay. So this is one of the more complicated things. And then the last thing in the whole document, I promise, is a page on the switching systems. There for the SBS PET series, the switching systems here, there's two options. The one that you can do by hand is the TrueSoft SBS, which it's easier to build by hand and is actually recommended. I found works actually better on some pedals. In fact, most pedals. This one's going to actually work a little bit better. Then there's the SBS system. The advantage there is you can have much higher like voltage outputs from a 9-volt power supply, and actually it doesn't even matter which voltage, 12, 15, 18, but whatever you're in, you can dial in that voltage. The disadvantage is that I found that you really have to, there's a little voltage trim pot, you really have to play with it to find a sweet spot where it reduces the noise floor. And so that can be a little more difficult to play with. The other thing is you would never want to assemble this by hand. When this was designed, it was all surface mount, really tiny components, that kind of thing. So there is a link, that's why it's pink. You can purchase the board. I've got a bunch extra. It's fully soldered, full of parts, ready to roll. All the parts are in it, and I'll be selling those basically at cost because I don't have any use for them right now. So, oh, I should note that the one pedal that I definitely recommend this for is a Coral Reef. It works great for giving lots of headroom to the Bucket Brigade chip. Definitely recommend it for that. The pedal I don't recommend it for is the tractor beam, because what I found is there was just a little bit of click in the LFO, and if you put a bunch of gain after it, then it becomes obvious. If you're playing clean, it's hardly there, but you put a bunch of gain after it, it becomes pretty apparent pretty quick. And then there are some other ones that just there's no advantage to this in any way. So like the Alpha Dog would be one, and the Fiery Red Horse would be another. They don't even use the DC converter at all that's in here, so there's just no advantage to this in any way. Okay, so hopefully that sort of cleared a few things up. I don't know. Maybe I'm just making it more confusing. And then last, there is a pre-programmed switching controller that's used in every single VFE pedal in all the DIY files. Now you can create your own switching system and do it that's fine, but if you're going to use one of the boards that I've got, you either need to get one that's pre-assembled like the SBS system, or you're going to need to purchase the pre-programmed chip. Unfortunately, I can't sell the code. I don't own the license to the code itself, but I can sell the chip pre-programmed. So you can click there. All right, that's the parts list. It's a lot, but it is. I've tried to make it a big resource for you to be able to find the parts that you need to make these pedals. If you do decide to become an authorized VFE builder and want to build a lot of it, feel free to ask me questions about part sourcing. If you're just doing this for personal use, I would ask that you limit the questions to like what's confusing about the document that I gave you, because unfortunately I can't help you hunt down every part. So thank you. All right, next up is the drill templates. All right, let's take a look at the drilling template folder. Click on here. There's just 3 files, and these 3 files, all they are templates for drilling. And let me show you how they work. So these are from Pedal Parts Plus. They're the ones who's been doing all the drilling power coding work for me for over a decade. And so the way that these are set up is it's got the enclosure, dimensions sort of traced out. But then when you actually look at any one of these holes, there's a little plus sign, a little crosshair there, and it's got the dimensions, an XY dimension, that's based around the center of the pedal being 0, 0. And the reason why that's done is to be really, really precise. It's easier to measure from the center than it is to measure from the sides, which can be curved, and so which part of the curvature do you measure from? There's a little flare out to the base. Are you measuring from the, you know, where is it? Are you determining that? And then there's just imperfections, closure to closure, you know, tolerance differences. And so they've done it from center to center. Now you can translate this into whatever way works best for you, but that's how these are set out. Now you'll notice that not all of them are indicated, like the size. Like this one says, if I'm pointing in the right direction, I think this one says 5/16. That's the diameter, and here's quarter inch diameter. And so you can see some of these, some of them are upside down. But those are the drilling diameter. In fact, I think the one up there says 13/32. And so yeah, so the information is there. This is all in inches. Sorry for those of you in the metric system. I'm in the USA, so this is what I got to work with. And yeah, so that's how it's set up. Here's the live series drilling template, and then there is the standard series drilling template. This is the original one. And then there is the new one, the SPS system template, and they're all basically set up the same way. I have given Pedal Parts Plus permission to just let anyone use these files, so so you could actually order from Pedal Parts Plus and say, hey, I want the VFE template for this template I want drilled. But Pedal Parts Plus does have some minimum order quantities for custom drilling, so you would need to probably be a authorized builder and be building a lot of them, or just pooling resources with your DIY friends and buying a bunch of enclosures. So anyway, but they don't need permission you don't need permission from me. You can just ask them, and they've got the go ahead to use those to drill for anyone. All right, that's the drill folder. Okay, let's take a look at that Eagle folder. If you open this up, what you will find is the Eagle schematic and board files for all of the various versions that you saw in the README document, as well as those different switching options. And so those little daughter switching boards will be there as well. I'm going to open up one here, the AlphaDog SPS. That's the latest design. And so here's the schematic file. The reason to give you these files is so that you can modify them and tweak them or relay them out to a different control configuration or whatever you would want to do, and kind of play with it there. So here's the board layout file, and so that's what's in there. So I want to note here that we have everything that was in that README file. The SPS system is always the latest version, the one I just redesigned in the last year. But then you've got the original version, version 1, version 2, the junior version, the live series Red Wolf version, and such. Okay, so that's what's in the Eagle folder. All right, let's take a look at these Gerber files. Now, it was impossible for me to create Gerber files that would work with across all fabrication houses, because they often all have their own unique extensions that they want across there. So this set is from PCBWay, which I often use for prototyping. But if you wanted to create a set that was for like OSH Park or some other service, and then send it to me and say this works for this service, and then I can just add it to the files, and kind of add to it. That'd be great. But I can't do it for all the various houses. So so let me just show you how this works. I can just go over here, PCBWay. Here's where I can upload this Gerber file. I've got this kind of preloaded here. So when I add that file, boom, it's ready to go. I can then change like the specs on that file, but it's got it. It's ready to manufacture, those kind of things. So those are the Gerber files. Note that there are 2 of them, and that's because the Gerber files here are for the latest design. The SPS system has a switching board with the power management system and the jacks all installed on this daughter board, and then the main effect board. So the one that says AD for AlphaDog SPS, that's the main effect board, and the one that says True Soft SPS, that is the switching system board. Now, the Gerber file I put right here, the daughter board that I put, is the one that I recommend to use with that pedal. So most of them will be True Soft, SPS. I know for the coral reef it'll be the regular SPS system, and I'll kind of like tune it to whichever one is going to be best. Okay, so there you go. That's the Gerber files. All right, and then last is the schematic folder. When you open that up, you're going to see multiple folders. SPS is the latest version of that circuit, but if there are any other versions, they're going to be in separate folders. So you got standard series, that original standard series, and then a live series here as well. So, but what I wanted you to see is that in each case, there's going to be a screenshot of that Eagle schematic. But when I made the Eagle schematic, it wasn't for DIY purposes. It was for me to manufacture. So it doesn't include some details like, where's the input and output on this thing? Well, I mean, they're there. There's a little input pin right there, and there's an output pin over here, but it's not as clearly labeled. And so in some cases, someone else has gone in and done that work. And so here's like a more formalized schematic that you might see out of DIY. Input, there's output over there, those kind of things. Here's someone else's work. These are all AlphaDog version 2 standard series ones. Okay. Now, if you want to improve the schematic, make it easier to read, and then send it to me so I can share it with others, great. Unfortunately, I don't have the time to just do that for everything. So, but I would love to add it. If you create something that's easier for others to read, I'll take a look at it, make sure it's accurate, and then just add it to the files. All right, there you go. There's the schematics folder. All right, I just want to wrap up by saying thank you if you made it through this super long video. And the whole reason why I'm doing this sort of restructuring of the website is once so that people can continue to build VFE pedals when I can't, when I'm being dad, when I'm being a teacher, and I don't have the time to do that. And also to give back to the DIY community. And then also, quite honestly, just to be able to still have VFE pedals and have something fund at the website and keep it running, so that it's a resource for me to still like experiment at times and put up some new things, and a resource that I can give away to my students who are interested in learning how audio circuits and particularly guitar pedals work. And I just want to thank you for all of your support throughout the years. While this is kind of like a closing of a big chapter on VFE, I'm excited on what lies ahead. Aren't you, baby girl? Love you. All right. Thank you.